Going to review the HMI walkthrough for a automated piston filler. This would be the main screen you would see when you would power up the machine. Over on the left hand side here, you'll have your master toggle switches. Starting at the top would be your fill cycle button. You'd press this once everything's all set up, and one push would start the machine in an automated mode, and it would just continue to run until you push the button again to stop it. Or you can push it once and then push it a second time to run a single cycle. The fill heads button on the left here will activate your fill pistons and your fill heads as an assembly. So if you turn that off, it's not going to fill, it'll just index containers through. Below is the conveyor, so that'll activate whether your conveyor is going to function or not. And supply at the bottom is going to activate your supply pump if you're using one. Up at the top here, you're going to have your setup tab, manual tab, timers tab, and recipe tab. You're going to have an in-feed container count here. So as you're running in an indexing mode, this will populate as it's counting past your count sensor. Down here at the bottom is just a quick view of your switches for the proxies on your piston fillers. So if you have a standard assembly where you have 4 heads, this is going to be for 1 and 2. This will be for 3 and 4 because those are all tied together. So these will light up showing which one is being activated. Down at the bottom, this is going to be where you're having any faults that are going to come up, or as you can see here, it'll pop up and say if you're running in cycle, and reset alarm on the left hand side. From this, if I was going to be going through, I would start at the left here under our setup tab. If I click on that, this would bring up, these are going to be your main settings. Here you'll have your indexing options. If you turn this off, then the indexing will not function at all. And you could use this if you're just manually putting a container underneath the fill head, and it'll just fill as soon as you push the fill cycle button, and then it'll stop. Having that turned on is going to be when you're going to be using an entry and exit pins. Over here will be for head dive if you're running it, drip tray, or locator if you're using it, and a head up limit, which we're not using, so that'll always be off. Fill 1 and 2, you could turn this off and on if you want to use your fill heads 1 or 2, or if you want to use fill heads 3 or 4. Up at the top here would take you to your ASU screens or automatic setup. If I click on that, it's going to bring me here. On a automated piston filler, you don't have automatic setup for your fill. You adjust it with the reed switches. So this will just be for setting up your indexing. We have walkthroughs on that as well, but this would be your start index, clear index, save index. It'll show your in-feed container count here, entry delay, exit delay, which I'll cover a little bit better when we get to our timer screen. If I go back to my main screen here, next in line would be the manual screen. If I bring that up, I'll be able to operate any of these functions manually by clicking these buttons here. If I go back to my main screen and I come to the next one, would be my timer screen here. If I run to this one, my entry delay would be at the top. So as my containers are coming in, they get indexed in. When my exit pin opens to release the filled containers, this would be the amount of time that would delay, waiting for the entry pin to pull back, creating the gap that's needed for your exit pin to be able to come back across. The next one down is going to be the in-feed count sensor. That'll be how many containers I want my in-feed count sensor to count in each indexing mode. Generally, it's going to be how many fill heads you have will be what you populate here. No bottle, no fill time. That'll be here. So that's going to be how long you have to see a container in front of the count eye before it will do anything with that. Fill piston full. This is going to be the delay when your fill piston pulls back into the full state, how long it has to delay at that sensor before it registers it. Exit duration is going to be the amount of time that the exit pin needs to stay open in order for all of your containers to be clear. This is going to be auto-populated from the ASU screen we talked about earlier. The delay fill, this will be after the container's index in. How long does it sit there and wait before the fill heads open? Head up delay will be after it dives down and it fills. How long does it sit there before it lifts the heads back up? If I next over to my next screen, this will take me to delay dive, so that'll be the opposite. Once the containers come in, how long will it wait before the heads dive down? Reset delay will be at the end of the cycle after it fills. How long does it wait before it indexes the containers out? So you could use this to time for slower equipment. Float delay is going to be the amount of time, if you're running a float, that float has to hang in the down position before it turns your product supply pump on. Your backup delay is going to be the amount of time that a container needs to sit in front of your line backup before it registers it. Your dive duration is going to be the amount of time that the dive stays down. Your exit retract delay is going to be the amount of time that it waits. So after your containers come in, they are filled, and when the dive is initiated to come up, how long does it wait before it opens the exit pin, giving time if you have really long fill heads that are inside the container, give them time to get out of the way before the containers go to leave. And stroke count would be how many times the piston needs to stroke for each fill cycle, so if you're filling larger containers with a smaller piston filler. If I were to go back to my setup screen, I would also see that I have an I/O screen, which is going to be the inputs and outputs. That'll allow me to see all my inputs here and all my outputs here. You match those up to your schematic, and that'll help you out in a diagnostic situation.